Take a look at your data to understand how customers are reacting to price changes.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the lagged relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and our guest today is Kiran Gange, and here are three things you'll want to know about Kiran before we start. He is the CEO and founder of RapidPricer out of the Netherlands. He was a senior strategy analyst at Fry's Electronics, which is something I'm just really, jealous or enthralled with. And he recently published a book called The Expert Guide to Retail Pricing. Oh, and he really loves baby photography. Welcome, Kiran.
Thanks, Mark. Pleasure to be here.
Hey, it's going to be fun. You were on about a year ago and you told us how you got into pricing. Tell us how you wrote this book. You actually told me a minute ago, but go ahead and retell the story so the listeners can hear this.
Okay, so I started doing this retail pricing in 2005, right? And 2005, all the way until now, I've been doing pricing for retail. So go Monday morning, fly across the country sometimes, fly to another country sometimes, and then go discover their challenges, find a solution, and then implement it, right? After doing it for a number of years, I realized it's the same path everybody is taking, right? It's the same challenges. It's the same way we were resolving this solution for them, finding a resolution. So let's see if we can document this. Let's see if we can make this a standard so that I don't have to come in every time. Another consulting company doesn't have to come every time, because there are other things we can do with our time, right? So I always had this on my mind to write this book. And then we started doing something slightly different also. We went into fresh produce pricing. But all this knowledge I had gained, not just me, all of my colleagues and I, we had built together on how pricing should be done inside a retail organization. Well, there was still a lot of interest in this subject, right? So I thought it is a good idea to put this on paper. And then I wish I had this when I was younger, when I was just getting started in pricing, or maybe even as a student. So all of this, it gives me great pleasure to know that it has been set in paper, at least, or for the next generation to learn from.
Nice. Very nice. Okay. So what was the common problem that people have, or set of problems?
So basically, the way we start when we work in an organization is pricing. The way pricing would have evolved by the time we as a consultant would enter a project, Mark, is okay, we know the cost of the project or the product, and this is how much we're going to mark it up, or instinctively we think this is the right price, or this is how it's always been done. One of these approaches would be used in retail to do the pricing, right? So when we use mathematics, when we put modeling to see what exactly is happening with seasonality and where is the peak of the curve where you can make more profit and the customer gets more value also, you find this out every time. And every time you do this, there it is, 6%, 8% increase in margin without losing customers while getting a better competitive position. The customers are happy. It's just economically reaching the right price point is how we do it. And that doesn't have to be so difficult anymore. It used to be like a closely guarded secret, Mark, maybe 5, 10 years ago. But I wanted to bring the secret out. I want to let everybody know how it's done.
So I think what you just said is that the single problem that everybody had was they were using the wrong pricing strategy. They weren't using mathematics or science to say, here's what demand looks like, here's what seasonality looks like, here's how we can do better pricing. Is that what you said?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call it wrong. Maybe it is not optimal, so it is not right enough, right? So we
Sure,
do
it's
still
suboptimal.
consider, yes, we do still consider the strategy, the instinct, the experience behind the category managers and the pricing managers. We don't let the algorithm just go wild, or AI just say, just do this, because the numbers are going to work. There's also the human side to it. So we kind of combine them and then give them a better price than there was already existing, Mark.
Yep. I mean, that makes all the sense in the world to me. One of the things that was in the description of the book, I want to read a sentence that was in the description of the book. Retail pricing is not about dollars, pounds, or euros, but the value a customer associates with a product, which can and does change over time. So first off, let's just start with the part that says pricing should be based on the value a customer associates with a product. Most of my work is in B2B. And a lot of my work is I want to look at different segments and who values my product by how much. And we really dig in and we say, how much is this person or how is this person getting value? What problem are they solving? So it's real work. And on the retail side, I always assumed that we didn't do that. We said, hey, we're going to estimate it, guess, statistically determine what their willingness to pay is. And so we could call that value, but not how they value it. So am I wrong in what I just said? Or what do you mean when you say what's most important is how a customer values a product?
So when you compare B2B with the retail pricing or B2C pricing, Mark, in B2B, many times the instinct, the relationship, the experience you had with that particular customer goes a long way in determining the price and understanding what this particular customer wants. But you think about a retailer who has 1,000 stores, 50,000 products, right? And they get purchased multiple times in a year. Suddenly the mathematics is so much more reliable for every purchase. It is not about one person, or like whether that person had a bad fight with his family or not on that particular day. The numbers are gonna tell you a little bit more of a truth when you have more numbers to stand behind it, right? So now you can measure the value a customer associates for this product based on the geography, based on the time of the day, based on the freshness of produce, based on the weather outside. So that value can be measured that much more accurately, mathematically, when it comes to B2C pricing. So I
Yeah.
wouldn't change completely how you're doing B2B, but in B2C, there is more value with the numbers. What comparing to B2B, I believe, right?
Yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with what you just said. If I were to change anything, I wouldn't change anything. I would just make sure that we understand the word value when you're using it in that sentence, by the way. It really could be replaced with the words willingness to pay, which, by the way, sometimes is what I call value.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially you think about something like a banana, right? So if a banana is ripe and ready to go and you're hungry, your value for the banana is so much different than a banana which is not ripe, or a banana you want to take it home for the weekend and it looks like it's about to go bad. The value of the banana is very different for that customer in front of that shelf at that moment. But most often times the price is very, very static. That's why I call this the lagged reaction between the value and the price of a product.
So when you said lagged, what you're really saying is we as retailers are slow to respond to customer changes in willingness to pay.
Absolutely, because that changes very, very quickly. Amazon, one of the fastest moving retailers, does this once every 10 minutes on average. They change the price of every product once in 10 minutes. But most retailers I know, unless it's a super competitive product, change it once in 3 months, once in 6 months at best. And that's not how the value inside the customer's mind is changing, right?
Yeah, it'd be kind of tough in a retail outlet, not e-commerce, but in a retail outlet to change prices every 10 minutes. Because if I go pick something up off the shelf and the price changed from the time I picked it up off the shelf until I got to the cash register, that might be a little challenging.
You're right. You're right. So we do have examples of retailers doing this. So what happens is oftentimes the price is always going down. It is not going up while the customer is inside the store, right? Let's say it started raining outside and you have 200 more umbrellas than you can sell this season. an automatic announcement in the store saying umbrellas 20% off right now, and go pick it up. Everybody wins. So there are cases for this, but can't be like, oh, because you're more hungry, I'm going to take the prices of bananas up. We wouldn't want to do that. No. The goal is to
Yeah.
provide better value, reduce food waste while making profit for the retailer.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a stupid question. Why don't they raise prices on umbrellas when it's raining outside?
Well, you could, but see, that's the thing we want to avoid, right? We don't want this to become a mechanism to extract at the desperation of the customer, say for example, or you don't want to say that, oh, you're having this fever, so I'm going to increase the price of this thermometer, right? But at the same time, the goal of which we work on at RapidPricer, my company, is to reduce food waste through dynamic pricing. If you don't sell a mango or a banana, you're going to lose 100% value of it, and it goes into a trash can. There's so much more value to be achieved in actually selling the product at a lower price than to take this incremental profit and to lose the trust of the customer, which is much more important than your profit in the long run.
Yeah, so dynamic pricing with produce or perishable goods to me is obvious. I'm not saying it's easy, but it certainly seems obvious that you would want to change the price of a product as it gets closer to perishing. Well, and we see that in airlines as well, right? An airline seat is perishable. It's not produce, but it's perishable. And what's funny about them is they actually raise the prices as you get closer to losing the seat.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It is a good use case for fresh produce to actually reduce the price, but there might be other use cases where you might see retailers wanting to increase the price, but in the long run, right? Like I think it was Jeff Bezos who once said that our elasticity numbers always show that people are inelastic, but that's not true in the long run, right? So you don't want to take prices up and lose the customer's trust. You might as well use a system to build a trust while reducing the wastage and increasing the customer satisfaction on it, right? That's what we
Yeah,
work on, at least.
I think that's a fair comment because I often talk about this concept of will I versus which one, which means am I going to buy something in the product category versus which one am I going to go buy? And to me, what that really means is my customer looking at a competitive alternative or not? And so
Absolutely.
once someone stepped into my retail store and I get to set the prices of all the items, they're not looking at competitors anymore. They're just looking at my items. Right? Now, if you're a brand, you think there's competitors in there, but I'm the store, everything is mine. So I don't really care which one you buy. I want to make the most margin, the most profit. And so theoretically, I've got you in the store. So I have the ability to raise prices on you or get you to pay me more. The problem is I need you in the store the next time. So
Exactly.
there's all these decisions that say, how is it that people choose stores? And how is it that people choose stores?
It's like the classic story of don't kill the duck which lays the golden eggs, right? You wanna keep it for the long term. If the customer is inside the store, although he's not checking, he's coming there with the trust that he's gonna get a good buy in your store, maybe. And when he goes back home, his cousin or his friend says that, oh, how much did he get it for? And I'm like, holy shit, I'm not going to go back to this store. You don't want that to happen, right? So it's not about what the customer is going to see while he's already inside the store, but giving them a fair value where it matters. That's the mathematics behind it, because sometimes customers don't care. I don't care what the price is. I need it right now. I need convenience. I need quality. That's a separate category. Versus, I need a low price on a can of milk, let's say. And that's another use case for dynamic pricing is by finding out where the market is, and then seeing where the customer is actually making a decision based on the competitive prices, and then dropping your price immediately based on where Amazon is, based on where Another large retailer is. How could you make those changes quickly? But one thing I want to mention is, I'm talking a lot about dynamic pricing, but this book, Mark, I want to bring back the focus, is about setting up a framework. It's not just about dynamic pricing. It's about setting up a framework to doing the basics of mathematics and analytics to leverage these models which are already built and available to do an everyday pricing decision, to run promotions and markdown. But this book doesn't it briefly touches about dynamic pricing, but that's not exactly the full focus of the book, just to be clear.
Okay, so then what are the frameworks? Give me an example of a framework that we're using inside the book.
So oftentimes retailers have many different sources of data, right? So we have competitive data, we have inventory data, pricing, promotion, competition in online versus brick and mortar. All of this is available, but it's oftentimes not connected to each other, and there is no process set in place as to how do you use it, how do you prioritize your strategy and formulate your strategy based on all of these data inputs. So the approach here talks about how can you start making the decisions, and how do you define the roles of your various categories, how do you identify your profit drivers, your traffic drivers, right? And then how do you translate that into responsibilities for your pricing team? So we need to do that first before you talk about dynamic pricing, right? We need to establish that all the data you have is sitting in the right place, talking to each other, and the entire team is leveraging this data to make better everyday pricing decisions. Is mainly what this book talks about.
And using data, how do you know which products are profit drivers and which products are traffic drivers?
So there is a very there are many methodologies you could use to come up with coefficients for your sales data, right? There is another chapter on how this modeling is done, but basically, let's say you have elasticity to begin with, right? You have elasticity, you have volume, and by building a two by two matrix, basically, of elasticity and volume, what is highly elastic and what has high volume is your image item, is your traffic driver. This could be the example of the egg, the milk, right? If it's something is a high volume but highly inelastic, then that is your profit driver, right? It could be like maybe whiskey or meat or high end meat or whatever it is. We will find out from the data. And oftentimes this analysis requires, you need to take out the elements of seasonality from it, the product life cycle. You need to take out the days of the week, days of the month, and then look at this analysis before you go forward. But there are many options now retailers have of finding out this elasticity, and by combining this with volume, there is a lot more insights to be taken out, and those kind of quick wins is what this book is talking about. You don't need a PhD to understand this book.
Nice. And how do companies get elasticity if they never change their prices?
So it is not true that they never change the prices. Because of inflation, everybody is changing prices. Very rarely do you see products which haven't changed prices for a long time. If that is the case, even then, there can be models built to leverage information from similar products, from similar stores, from similar categories, or even industry level elasticity numbers are available to begin your analysis on.
And so when you say elasticity, you are talking about the category's elasticity, not an individual product's elasticity.
No, I'm talking about individual product and by location, and sometimes it's by season also. A Christmas
Okay,
mug
so
in Christmas is very different from a Christmas mug in summer.
totally agree. But let's assume I have two different brands of green beans and I raise the price of one brand of green beans and I don't raise the price of the other. Then people are going to shift their buying to the one that didn't get the price increase. So it
Yeah.
looks like it's highly elastic. If I raise the price on both of them, then probably brand choice didn't change, but whether they purchased the category might have changed. And so there's a difference between category elasticity and product elasticity.
Yes. One level deeper than this is what we use in our models. We build decision trees. So beans, say for example, green beans of the economy variety is grouped into one group of products, right?
Okay.
And then there is high-end premium beans. Then you're looking at demand shifting within that group and the product elasticity also at the same time. So this is you don't have to have a most complex elasticity model built on day one, Mark. You could start with basic, but the elasticity models we have are pretty much, they've evolved over 16 years now, like with all of these factors you're mentioning. Okay, what about the category elasticity? What about the cross elasticity between products, like you mentioned? Or how does the competitor's price matter? Or a nearby store closed, that's why more demand walked into your store. All of that gets modeled at the same time when you think about elasticity. But it's like, you don't have to be super complex to begin with. Let's start somewhere, but the models have evolved to take into account the factor you just mentioned, Mark.
Okay, so now it seems to me that what you're saying isn't obvious or easy to do, but it seems that it's obvious that it's necessary. Are there still stores that aren't doing this?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. So, and again, it depends. I have this chapter on how different countries have evolved to a different level of maturity, like Northern Europe versus America versus Latin America versus Asia. There are many countries and even retailers inside the United States which still do cost plus markup of pricing, right? So, and there are some which do AI based dynamic pricing to match Amazon immediately also. So there's a big ladder, and a lot of different retailers are successful for many other reasons other than pricing also. But there might be opportunities for them also to incorporate some mathematics into their pricing.
Yeah, so I guess I don't mean to say that they have to use your techniques, but it feels to me like everybody's using something. But I guess maybe cost plus is the easy answer today. Um, is Costco still using cost plus? Do you know?
I highly suspect that Costco has been very smart to have just a few products, and then they really measure the sensitivity of these products to see where people do want a discount and where it's okay not to discount it very steeply. In fact, their customer level analysis is brilliant. They would send the right coupon to the right person. You might receive 20% off on something, and I might get 40% off. And that is another example of elasticity being done at the customer level. Now, store, product, customer, that's the third level of elasticity you're talking about.
Yeah, and I would bundle that into price segmentation, but absolutely right. I mean, that is taking advantage of somebody's price elasticity. And that implies they're not doing cost plus. They might do
Absolutely.
cost plus for a list price, but beyond that,
Yeah. Oftentimes, what retailers have is like a rule which is a minimum margin rule, right? So I'm not going to make less than 10% or 20% margin. And then whatever is the right price mathematically determined has to be above that, right? And sometimes retailers are okay with compromising on that. I don't mind making only 5% margin because it's a very competitive item. So they have like a floor, but on top of that, there is usually most efficient retailers have some format of pricing which is based on analysis.
nice, nice. One other thing that I read that you said, and I don't know that I agree with it, so I want to ask you what you mean. And that was you said you can improve value through pricing.
Mhm.
What does that mean? Improve value through pricing.
Improve value or prove value?
Improve.
Improve value. So basically, when a customer is buying something, he has in his mind how much he wants to pay for it, right? So if more customers are able to find the price which works for them, then there is more value delivered in the market overall, right? So there is more products being sold, the customer is happy, and the retailer is making more profit. That is overall increase in the value delivered to the ecosystem.
Okay. I have to say, every time I disagree with you or anybody about these things, it almost always comes back to what's the definition of value? Because there are so many different definitions of value. It
Yeah.
depends on when we're using it or where we're using it. So
Uh,
nice. Good
I
answer.
would go to say it is at the point of purchase, right? How much is the customer willing to depart with to obtain that at that point of time, right?
Yeah, that's certainly one definition. How much is someone willing to pay for something?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
so I think
could be
about that a
many.
lot.
Could be many.
Think about
Yes.
that a lot. Yeah, nice. Kieran, this is fun. I love learning about retail pricing because I don't know that much about it, and I just it's so fascinating to me. But we're gonna have to start wrapping this up. Let me ask you the final question. What is one piece of pricing advice you'd give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
So take a look at your data to understand how customers are reacting to price changes. Very simply, build a price versus volume chart. Even better, on the same chart, include your competitors' prices. And quickly, you could use like a filter option to get a visual feel to see what's happening to your volume as it depends on pricing, right? I mean, very simple. It's an Excel analysis, basically. An analyst can build in less than 30 minutes. But if you already have the data, do that first. Maybe it'll give you a lot of eye opening insights for you to decide what you should do with your pricing strategy.
Yeah, great answer. And I'm going to pull this back to B2B for a second because that's the world I live in mostly. And in the B2B world, I often recommend that you create a scatter plot, which is exactly, volume versus price. Show me how many deals I won. And then if you could throw win loss in there, that'd be great. Which deals did we win? Which deals did we lose? At what different price points and what different volumes? Oh my gosh, that is so insightful to see what you're doing as a company and where you
We're
are.
on the
So
same page then. When it comes to retail, you don't have to have scatter plots because there is a much more thicker stream of data coming in over time. So that's why we make it a line plot instead of a scatter plot.
nice, nice. All right. Kieran, thank you so much for your time today. If anybody wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Well, you could get in touch with me on LinkedIn. My name is Kiran, KiranGange. I go by the same email, kirangange@gmail.com. And I also welcome you to go check this book out on Amazon. It's called The Expert Guide to Retail Pricing. You should see it in your local country and let me know your thoughts on the same.
All,
I'd be happy to help you
all,
for free if I can on any topics
all
related
right.
to this.
Thank you, Kieran. That was fabulous. And to our listeners, thank you so much for your time. If you enjoyed this, would you please leave us a rating and a review? You can get instructions by going to ratethispodcast.com/impact pricing. And finally, if you have any questions or comments about this podcast or pricing in general, feel free to email me, mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.